Welcome back to our second video on complex sentences. I'm really excited about showing you this video because in it I'm going to be sharing with you some really great ways of improving the variety of your complex structures. You're going to have about 8 different structures that you can use in your next essays, and again, don't worry, it's not as hard as it sounds. So I'm really excited for you because if you've not used these before or weren't sure about these types of sentences, then your grammatical range is going to increase a lot through watching this video. So make sure you're concentrating and ready to take notes. The types of complex sentences we're going to be making are conditional sentences. Now, these are used to say that the action in the main clause can only occur if a certain condition is met. Therefore, they are sometimes known as if clauses. There are 4 main types of these, and each of them could be effectively used in an IELTS essay. They are an excellent way to help display a range or variety of complex sentences. So we're going to go through each one in turn, and I'm going to be showing you a lot of real examples of how to use these in body paragraphs. First, we have the zero conditional, and this is used to talk about facts and true information. It's useful for your supporting sentences in your main body paragraphs, and you can make it using this structure: when or if plus present simple, and that's for the condition. Then you add present simple for the result. Here are some examples to demonstrate that. When we go on holiday, we travel to a different area. If we elect a government, we are democratic. When we burn fossil fuels, we are harming the environment. Notice that the 2 clauses are separated by a comma. Let's have a look at how these can be used in real essays. Here's a couple of example paragraphs. One of the main drawbacks to globalization is increased pollution of the environment due to increased amounts of travel. When we travel more, we use more fossil fuels, which releases more greenhouse gases that harm the ozone layer. You might then complete that paragraph with an example, but as you can see, the zero conditional sentence supports the main topic sentence really well. Here's another example. When people commit a serious crime, they get punished accordingly. If they are not punished harshly, they often re-offend. For example, the infamous train robber Carly Dawson was caught twice in 1967 and went unpunished before he finally committed his greatest theft in 1969. Now, a quick side tip is that your examples that you use in your main body paragraphs can be made up. They don't need to be real. I've no idea who Carly Dawson is or what happened in 1967 or 1969. They are completely fictional, but they help to develop your body paragraphs, and the examiner is not going to be going and checking your examples. They just want to see good English. So go ahead and make up specific examples that support your main points. Okay, let's have a look at the first conditional. The first conditional is used to talk about things in the present or the future, and again it's useful for supporting sentences in main body paragraphs. The structure is when or if plus present simple plus will or won't with verb 1. A couple of examples. If the world's population continues to grow rapidly, we will not have enough food to feed everyone. If investment in public transport is reduced, then we will force people to use their own vehicles and increase road traffic. One thing to notice there is the first sentence has a comma separating the two main clauses, but not the word then. The second sentence has a comma followed by the word then. The word then is optional, you don't have to use it. I do like to use it. I think it makes it sound a bit more academic in nature, but it's purely optional and lots of people don't. Let's have a look at some examples of first conditional in main body paragraphs. One of the most significant disadvantages of globalization is the loss of individual cultures. If we continue to allow the Americanization of lifestyles around the world to continue, we will eventually all act and think the same. For instance, in the northern hill tribes of Thailand, many traditional tribes now wear baseball caps with Nike on them, rather than traditional headgear. Here's another example paragraph. Another serious consequence of globalization is the loss of minority languages. If English continues to be used as the language of business, then many local languages and dialects will simply fade away. To illustrate this point, 97 languages have already disappeared in the last 50 years alone. Okay, so you can clearly see how well the first conditional sentence can support a topic sentence, and that, along with a specific example, really makes a nice, strong, well-developed paragraph. And once more, those examples are completely made up. Although I have been to northern Thailand and I did see some tribe people wearing baseball caps, so there is some truth there. Alright, let's have a look at the second conditional. This is used to talk about imaginary or impossible events in the future. And it's also useful for your supporting sentences in main body paragraphs. The structure is when or if plus past simple, which is verb 2, plus would or wouldn't plus verb 1. If the world's population doubles in size, we would run out of water. Notice how unlikely it is for the population to double in size. It's completely imaginary. Some people would say impossible. That's what the second conditional is for, but it does make you think about these things and helps to emphasize points. If the ice caps melted, many countries would disappear underwater. That would be a great supporting sentence if you were trying to persuade someone in an opinion essay that climate change was an important issue. You're exaggerating the effects slightly by using a near impossible example or using your imagination. So it's a really effective type of sentence to use. And our example paragraphs. I am of the firm opinion that teachers are far more valuable to society than celebrities and should be paid more. If all teachers suddenly resigned, then it would cause mass panic amongst parents. However, if all celebrities resigned, we would soon find other people to replace them. If we devalue our teachers, they will move on to other careers and we will all suffer for it. Now, this is a really interesting paragraph because the main topic sentence is supported by not one but two second conditional sentences. So it really engages the reader to imagine what the effect of their main point is. So it's just really effective at drawing the reader in. And notice this is followed up. So two second conditional sentences making the reader use their imagination is then followed up by a first conditional sentence which is more realistic. So they've made the reader think imaginarily about how bad it could get and then made a more realistic point. if we devalue our teachers, they will, notice they've used will because it's first condition, they will move on to other careers and we will all suffer for it. So it's a really clever strategy to use, not only for your IELTS essay to show a range of grammar, but also in real life if you're trying to persuade people. So that's a really good paragraph structure there. Here's another one. I strongly believe governments should do more to improve the health of a nation. If they simply prevented fast food companies from advertising to children, we would soon see a drop in the levels of childhood obesity. This would decrease a wide variety of health-related diseases and would therefore decrease the strain on hospitals. Now, clearly governments are never going to ban fast food companies from advertising to children. There's far too much money in it. So it's just not going to happen. But again, it's making people think, and it engages the reader, and it's a great way to back up the opening topic sentence. Okay, now onto the last conditional, which is the third conditional. This conditional is used to comment on or speculate about past events. And it's useful also for supporting sentences in main body paragraphs. We wouldn't really want to be starting to speculate about past events in our conclusion or our introductions, so it just makes sense to use it, as with the other conditionals, as our supporting sentence. And we make it by using when or if plus past perfect, so that means using had, plus would or wouldn't have, plus verb 3. It's very important you don't miss the have. A lot of students miss out the have, but you must use that. And you must use verb 3, which for example is eat, ate, eaten, drive, drove, driven. So it's that last verb there. You might be used to calling it the past participle, but we'll call it verb 3 here. And a couple example sentences. If we had not invented the motor car, then perhaps global warming would never have occurred. If we had paid more taxes in the past, then our country would not have gotten into such debt. So notice how thought-provoking these sentences are. They really draw the readers into thinking about past events and what could have happened differently, how things could be different if other things hadn't happened. So really thought-provoking sentence structures here. And here are our two example body paragraphs. Social media has proven to be a dangerous tool for those who mean to do wrong to others. If we had not invented social media, then there would be much less cyberbullying in schools. Much tighter controls are needed on these types of websites, as several suicides have already taken place as a direct result of their misuse. Last year saw the tragic case of a student at New York High School hang themselves following constant and incessant cyberbullying. Now please don't worry, I've made up that example again, but I'm just showing you how you can round out, how you can develop your body paragraphs through specific made up examples. But we're reading this one particularly to see how well this third conditional sentence supports the topic sentence again. It does a great job of making the reader imagine what life would be like if social media hadn't been invented. So that's a great way to use it. Here's another paragraph to have a look at. Websites that encourage the sharing of certain types of content encourage attention seekers to perform dangerous stunts on camera. Alex Kirby would not have jumped out of a moving car on camera and would still be here today if it had not been for this trend. Once more, we've got a specific example being used as an imaginary rethink of what life would be like in the if something in the past had been different. And this is a great job of supporting the topic sentence here. And we're going to talk about the very last sentence a bit more in the next slide, but read it again to yourself now. See if you can spot anything different about that sentence. Okay, let's move on. You might have noticed that in that last sentence, the clauses were actually in the reversed order. So, in fact, all conditional sentence clauses can be reversed in order. And you may wish to do this in your essays to show variety and control over your complex sentences. For example, if we had not invented the motor car, then perhaps global warming would never have occurred. That's the normal order for the clauses, starting with if, but you could put them the opposite way round and start with perhaps. So perhaps global warming would never have occurred if we had not invented the motor car. And in all the body paragraph examples I've shown you, you could have reversed the order. This would have shown great control over your grammar in complex sentences. So one other thing to note is that in that first example there, the word then is in brackets. You don't have to use the word then, that is optional. I sometimes use it, I sometimes don't. It's perfectly optional. But the comma is not optional. You do need the comma there to separate the two clauses. However, if we reverse the clauses, in the second example, we don't include a comma. So we don't have a comma after occurred. It's just one full sentence with no comma. So that's just a couple of little punctuation pointers for you. So, moving on then to a few final thoughts about conditional sentences. Now, I've shown you a lot of different things you can do with conditional sentences there, lots of examples, and hopefully you'll be able to go away and use them. Now, if you're really interested in conditionals, then you could do some further research on mixed conditionals, because there's actually some even more really interesting ways of using mixed conditionals, and that's exactly what they sound. It's when you mix up the clauses even more. That makes the grammar structure a lot more complicated as well, and you don't need to learn them at all. What I've just shown you there is fantastic grammar and fantastic structure that will do you really well. You'd be able to get a band 9 with what I've just shown you. However, just for your own interest, you could have a look at mixed conditionals. Remember though that practice makes perfect. It's no good just watching this video. You've got to pick up your pen and have a go at using these. I recommend that you obviously get feedback if you can. Remember, perfect practice makes perfect, and that's going to need a bit of feedback somewhere. And the best place to start is by looking at your previous essays. Go and have a look at your previous essays. Where could you fit conditional sentences into them? Or have you put some in already? If you have, well done. Which type of conditional sentences were they? Could you add any more in? Could you reverse the orders of the clauses at all? And that's all I need to really say to you about conditionals. It's a great way of adding complex sentences to your essays. Now, well done for getting this far through the course. By getting this far through the course, you've put yourself in a really excellent position to produce some fantastic essays. And remember, by putting the effort in now, it's going to make your future, and not just the IELTS test, but your future, much better. It could get you to that dream job or get you through university, and that can help you in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time. Can completely make your standard of living so much better. Believe me, I've seen it in previous students. So I know it's hard to get through all these videos, but you're doing a great job, and it's going to be really well worth it for you. Okay, well done. I'll let you have a break now.